of the Bridge Show with Suzanne Plumley, which is part of the World of Ability Podcast Network. Um, and so the show is we have the show every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Central. If anyone is interested in being on the show, let us know. We can get that taken care of. So the show's kind of about like diagnosis of uh, Asperger's and bridge building and so on. So uh, pass it over to Suzanne for our wonderful topic today.
Great. Thank you, Emily. I hope you're all getting a lot out of these podcasts. They are specifically meant to help the Aspie woman to live a better life. But when it comes down to it, a lot of this information is relevant to everybody. And you can get a little bit of a tidbit of help just by watching it. You don't have to be an Aspie woman or a neurodivergent woman or even a traumatized woman to really get the value out of these. So today, I don't know how you do with time conversion, but I have a special guest. She is a relationship coach, and she actually works with the female to help her create a mind and body and soul so that every relationship she goes into, specifically her significant other or spouse, depending on what stage her relationship is in, she'll be on today. But now she lives in Hawaii and I'm in Texas. So there is a time variance, and she's probably still asleep, just waking up to get her girls settled. So I told her that a um, we would go ahead and do a recording. Now, Mark, who you heard his voice the other about 2 weeks ago when we did What Would You Love, he will also be joining us. And I'll tell you, in the recording, you'll understand why the three of us have something in common, and it's really special. So, at this point, I'm going to turn on the recording because my tagline is there. And at the end, I'll come back and tell you about a very special introductory project I'm working on that I would love to have you subscribe to if you love to read. So, without further ado, let's get going on the recording. One moment. We start it up here. Okay. For some reason, it's playing games with us today, but I'll get it up. Hang on. There we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Aspie Bridge Show. We're starting a new. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Aspie Bridge Show. We're starting a new month, a very important month for all of you. Whether or not you have a significant other or a spouse, this is going to be very important to you this week because this is where your heart passion starts to develop a healthy feeling of belonging in this world and having someone that's important. Okay, for some reason we're experiencing a minor difficulty here. Hang in there, and I will have it up in a moment for you. It was working quite well a moment ago. And it's my error, nobody else's error. So just stay tuned for a moment. Okay. Let's see here. My Zoom recording doesn't want to seem to show up for some reason, and I am trying to figure out why that might be. Let's see here. It was showing up before. Hmm. I'm sorry about this technical difficulty I'm having here. It will be up very shortly, hopefully. My goodness.
Suzanne, if it's helpful, I have it up. It's working for me. I can screen share if you'd like. If that's helpful.
Yeah, that would be wonderful if you're able to do that, Emily. I'm sorry, folks. We were passing the video over. Emily has it now, and so she can take over from there to present it up for us. All right, Emily, go right ahead. Thank you so much for saving me. Every so often, technical grace is required. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Aspen Bridge Show. We're starting a new month, a very important month for all of you. Whether or not you have a significant other or a spouse, this is going to be very important to you this week because this is where your heart passion starts to develop a healthy feeling of belonging in this world and having someone that's important. But I also want to tell you that it starts within you. And Samantha, my one of my guests today, is going to tell you about that. But before I go on, let me tell you the tagline, as I always do, with all the awesome Aspie people in the world, such as Paul Michelap in Australia and Sam Stein in the Netherlands, Sarah Hendricks in the UK, Temple Grandin here in the US, as well as myself and others, telling you what the traits of autism are. The mission of the Aspie Bridge is more than that. It's to help you women who are tired of feeling stuck and trapped to come to the bridge, to get my help as a torchbearer, to connect you with these wonderful people who can make your life a lot easier because they are volunteer bridge builders. They are the resources that add to my coaching that will help you go back into society feeling confident that you can handle whatever's coming to you and at you without feeling stressed. You can deal with all of that because we're here to help you do that. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Samantha Kaaua, my first guest, and let her tell you about herself and why this is important to you, and then I'll reintroduce you to Mark, who you heard his voice 2 weeks ago, but you didn't see him yet. So, Samantha, would you like to let us know about yourself, please?
Yes, thank you so much for having me here, Suzanne. It's just such a privilege and a pleasure to support you and the community of the ASCII Bridge. I am a marriage mind shift coach. So again, yes, my name is Samantha Kaaua. You pronounced that beautifully, by the way. And I love to support women in their marriages. So I specialize in working with women to form the relationship, and I have a very counterculture approach to friendship transformation. And the reason why I believe that this is a really important topic and I feel really called to support this community is because our culture has been taught almost backwards in how to relate to one another. And I believe that the ASCII community has a lot to teach us. So I want to share some really amazing tips and tools today with all of you that actually might bring you back to your natural states, and that can enhance your relationships. And then you can go on and teach others how to better relate to the world. So, yeah, that's from here.
That's beautiful because even myself, I find that I'm a little nervous about going back into the dating world because I want to be seen for who I am, not for a disability.
Mhm.
Now, without further ado, let's go and introduce Mark and how he has a part to play in this. Now, I want to tell you that the three of us started way back in what, 2019 together. No, Mark corrected me and said 2020 is when he got to know what BTI was, but we were together from the very beginning. And it's so awesome to see the three of us together now. Mark, please let us know who you are and how you're special to this group.
Thank you, Suzanne. I'm happy to be here again. I'm happy to be on camera and, to be with everybody. And I'm a heart set coach that works primarily with enlightened entrepreneurs, helping them really navigate that confusing landscape of themselves while they grow into what they're bringing as a gift to the world. And interestingly enough, in a relationship sense, my background is that I spent a great deal of time as a child growing up seeking that connectivity with other people and in a cycle of destroying everyone that I got involved in. So now, with the change in my understanding and my behavior, I have an incredibly loving marriage and the woman of my dreams. And I'm in a completely, as Sam said, almost counterculture mentality of how relationships should go. So I'm really looking forward to bringing any of my experience to the table here in this conversation. And I'm really happy to be with you guys. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you, Mark. I think that this dynamic of the three of us is really going to help women feel so much more comfortable about, as I would say, going into a relationship and then maintaining the relationship once you're into it because she'll have the tools from Sam and the perspective from Mark as the guy side of it to know how to navigate some of the trickier ways of working in a relationship. So, our topic of the day, as I said, is improving the relationship mindset in you first to create a stronger partner relationship. And I'm going to turn this over to Samantha so that she can explain exactly how this works.
Yes. So there's a few teaching points that I teach my community in regards to relationship transformation. And this applies not just to romantic relationships, this applies to all relationships. And we relate to other people, we relate to things, inanimate objects, to time, to money, right? So there's all sorts of relationships we have out there. So if you're not in one, and you want one, that you can put that into perspective. Or if you're in one and you're working on a relationship with something else like time or money, you can put that in this place as well. So one of the first things I like to share with my community is that it only takes one person to transform a relationship. And as Suzanne mentioned, it starts from the relationships within yourself, right? So have most people don't realize that we actually have different parts of self within one person, right? You may have heard, and I'm actually an anti-diagnosis practitioner. I used to be a former marriage and family therapist, which would require me to diagnose people, and definitely resisted that. So many of you might have heard of the diagnosis of multiple personality disorder or split personality disorder. And it really created this culture of fear of having multiple voices in your head. Am I crazy? What's going on? Why am I battling myself? And I want to just debunk that myth that if you have different parts of you, different voices, right? One part of you is excited and the other part of you is angry and scared and happy and sad. That's normal. It's completely normal. And so the goal here is to form a better, deeper, more loving and trusting relationship with all parts of yourself. And then it will be reflected outside of you. So I'll pause there because I think I could just keep going on and on, but I would love to just pause and like hear from the two of you if there's any questions or if we want to go in any other direction. And I would love to hear from Mark too.
I love that from the standpoint. I'm going to get quickly over to Mark because I'm going to cover a lot more ground. But I love that because women do experience, particularly in my community, they have the yin yang, the voices going on. I love him and I love me, but I need more freedom, or I need this, or I need that, and we're taught at BTI that just a part of us feels this way.
Yes.
And another part of us is spiritual, having a different experience. So it's okay to have a couple of voices, as Sam was saying, as long as you can really come into who you are. So with that, I'm going to let Mark take off because that's a great segue into where he is an expert in his own expertise.
Yeah, Samantha, I love what you said there about our relationships with ourselves, because how I ended up in this great marriage was a change in me, a very aggressive change that I made in me. And I was unaware at the time just how important that would be in order to relate to everybody. Like you said, all relationships. This all also included my family, my friends, my coworkers, everything in my professional career. Making relationships became a much more enjoyable thing once I had a better relationship with me. So I love that you started at that place, because I love to come from the perspective of the great Gandhi quote, "Be the change you want to see in the world." And that's a great place to start in my perspective, and from a guy's perspective of looking to find my rhythm in how I should be socially, how I should be intimately, what's the culture I'm in. I think that our identities of who we believe we should be is relatable to our culture as what's maybe expected of us, or at least somewhat anticipated by people. So it's been intriguing, but I love starting from that point. So for me, it's what can I do? What can I bring? Not so much what am I expecting or what do I want from someone else.
Yes, I love that. And so to continue this conversation about the different parts of ourselves and building that deeper relationship within first, one of the things I find that most women are challenged with, and this is not like there is no separation here between the ASPE community and just right neurotypical anyone, right? It the women in general that I work with, what I found is that they're lacking trust in themselves.
I was just going to say that. Yes. Yes. And we have such a bigger sensitivity to trust because we have been taken advantage of maybe a little bit more. But I love that you're starting with trust. That's great.
Yes. Well, actually, yes, possibly taken advantage of, Suzanne. However, I do think the culture of our community has taught the ASCII community not to trust yourself, right? The message is the lack of social awareness and cues and reading other people. And therefore, you begin to question yourself and your ability to know how to handle any situations, right? Which leads to some of the questions that you have asked me over the past, which would be like, how do you do it? Or what should I do when this happens? Versus coming back to center, right? Coming back to yourself and building that rapport within yourself to navigate any situation. So really the goal here is to rebuild trust within self so that you can feel confident in the way that you're showing up in the world, and that no matter if you misread a situation or you misunderstood something, that you have trust and faith in yourself, that you showed up so genuinely and so lovingly that if someone does get offended or if someone does get hurt, that might be their experience, right? That you can apologize for things, but at the same time, not own it, right? So it's so often that we own someone else's experience. And I would say, what is that? That's a reflection of the amount of trust you have in yourself, right?
Yeah, if I can interrupt there.
Yes, go for it.
Mark was talking about, both of you were talking about the fact that it's not just spouses. Now, Mark knows the challenges I've had with my mom and trusting what she has to say, which then filtered down into accepting a spouse that treated me much the same way. Because I never found my center. I was never taught how to find my center. And a lot of women who are in my community find, because they haven't sat back to look at what's going on with the metrics and everything, they keep on going into serial relationships saying, well, he was bad, but the next one will be better, without ever coming back to who they are. And so I've been able to find forgiveness for my spouse because I finally understood where his heart really belonged. And then I've been able to, haven't I, Mark, found a way to come to terms with my mom through creating a healthy boundary that said, I will love you for who you are, but I don't have to accept you and your feelings and your comments or your disempowering beliefs about me in my life on a daily basis. And it's such a huge win for me, I would say. What did you say, Mark?
Oh, absolutely. And there is that acceptance without toleration is how we can accept the world for who it chooses to be, but I can also choose what I have exposure to. This is a two-way street. I don't have to tolerate someone else's behavior if I deem this to be damaging to me. On the other hand, I don't have to handle it in a very conflicting way. I don't have to be aggressive. I don't have to attack. I could just say, I understand you choose that. I choose this. And it's been amazing watching you come into your strength and see you in your zone of genius, feeling that foundation solidify under. I could feel it on you. The foundation saying, I am myself and I'm going to go do what I want to do, regardless of what other people think of me or say about me. And I think that's really, it looks amazing on you, Suzanne. It really does.
Well, thank you. You know, the funny thing is, ladies, I have to tell you that sometimes in order to change our inside, change the physical part of you on the outside. Now, for the longest time, and Samantha remembers this, I had short hair, and it was dark because everyone in my family said, you look better with short hair. You look better with it long. And so I listened to them, but I kept on feeling, I kept shrinking because where was I? So sometimes you need that little bit of maybe a physical change in yourself. And hair is the easiest way to do it. It's the easiest way to do it because you're not conscious about your diet at the moment. You just want to change your heart. So just let your hair grow out. Or if it is long, go short. If it's brown, go red. If it's, I mean, it's the easiest way for you to say, no, I'm taking a stand for what I love. And at that, let's go on to Sam's pillars or her belief systems on how we can start to really enforce the woman inside to make her feel better about herself so that when she comes up to her spouse or her relationship, and then Mark can tell us from the opposite point of view how it looks on the other person, because I know, Mark, you said Sherry has come into her own as the time has gone by. So it would be cool to hear both of your perspectives.
Yes. Okay. So there are four main mindset shifts or mind shifts that I'd like to share with the people that I'm working with, but also just our community in general when we're starting to become counterculture. And I've shared some of it already earlier in this call, but let me just present it for us. The first mind shift is that it only takes one person to transform a relationship, right? So think about the law of systems. This is a scientific law, and it applies to ecosystems, economic systems, families, right? And even our body is a system. These are open systems that can change with different inputs and different outputs. And to bring this into focus in regards to your relationship, a relationship between two people is also a system, an open system. And if you change the way you show up in your relationship, by law, universal scientific law, the system must and will change, right? Using the ecosystem as an example, if a species becomes extinct in that ecosystem by scientific law, the rest of the ecosystem will rise up and adapt, or it's going to end. The ecosystem will end. And nature does not like to end. Nature likes to evolve. Nature likes to continue and to live and to thrive. And therefore, most often, the rest of the system will change, will adapt. And that happens in our relationships as well. The thing where we go wrong is that we try to make this change to influence and impact our relationship. But as soon as our partner or the other person triggers us, we go right back to the old patterns, right? Can we relate to that? I'm sure all of us can, right? The most think of the most triggering person in your life, and there's this one pet peeve thing that they do. And the moment they do that, we go right back to our old patterns. And so the goal here is to remain constant and steady in our new way we show up, our new thought patterns, our new beliefs, our new, right? We want to create that new energetic signature. And when we do that and hold steady long enough, your partner will adjust and will change and adapt. But every time we turn the heat off the stove, the water will never boil, right? So we want to create a phase change. We need to keep the heat on the stove. So that is probably the most challenging part of this relationship transformation that I find most women or men have using this model. So I'll pause there first. And
yeah, I was just going to say that works out perfectly, because 2 weeks ago, Mark and I were talking about leaving the dream of a stronger relationship, leaving the pot of water on the stove.
Nice.
You don't want to take it off and think that it's on autopilot. Leave it on the stove and know it's just as important as every other part of your life. Mark and I were just talking about this.
Oh, so cool.
Your life as a stove. The front burner is where you're putting a lot of your attention on, but the other 3 burners are going on simmer. And maybe they may not require your full attention at the moment. Let's say you have a strong relationship, you're not being triggered, and you're okay. You're going through your day to day. You're having flow. Well, that's not where you have to put your attention on that pot. But don't take that pot of relationships off of the stove thinking it's gonna keep going. You gotta keep working on it.
Yes, I love that analogy. That's a great one, and it works so well with what we just talked about. So great.
Oh
Yeah.
Go ahead, weigh in, Mark.
No, that's beautiful. I love that, because sometimes we think we have to do so much work to get things accomplished. And as we were talking about, you and I, that when you have a field of vision, here's where I'm going, you can have a few different things in front of you and they won't die for lack of attention, because they're in the frame of vision you have as you're moving forward. So that was a great symbolism of, we're just going to keep this warm while I deal with this, but we're not going to forget about it. We're going to come back to it. We're going to add to it and grow. And I love that. I love that perspective. And it
worked so well with my first client, because she was looking for visual representations to help her understand the model of the 4 quadrants. And she said, well, what quadrant should I work on first? I said, well, what one's most important? I said, but don't take your daughter off of the stove and don't take your husband off the stove. And certainly don't take your family dynamics that are troubling you off the stove because that's actually the one you're working on right now. She said, I get it. I get it. It's like I can put the other three on low if they're not a current problem. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, it's not that it's a current problem. It's just not the focus at the moment.
And let me add to this analogy. So when you have when you're cooking on 4 burners, right? The goal is to start at 1 burner, reach the boiling point, reach the right. You want to create the boil, create the phase change, and the simmer. You can turn the heat down to low and still simmer, which is still in phase change, which is still in transformation. But first, what's most important is to get that aspect of life to the boil, right? That's the phase change. So that's what I'm talking about when I say it only takes one person to transform a relationship. Is you must reach that boiling point first, then you can simmer, then you can turn the heat down, right? But until you get there, you'll never get to a simmer just on low. You will never do that. Or going high, low, high, low, high, low, high, low. Like you'll not get there. So it's important to reach the boiling point before you get to the simmer, right? And before you put the other areas on pause. So
Yeah,
I want to add to that analogy.
Yeah, before you move the other pans, because
Yes.
I was talking to Mark 2 weeks ago, and I said to him, "Well, there are times that I was working full fledged on my relationship because I was looking for a very special relationship to grow, which meant that my other relationship, my actual health and well being, didn't have to be on the front burner." And then I said, and for a little while my vocation was there, but all of a sudden my time and money freedom relationship became strong. So you are moving your pots around based on what your importance is at the moment, but not once did I take that any pot off of the burner. So
Right.
is there anything else you'd like to add to your 4 mindsets, Amanda, before we go on?
Yeah, well, that's just the first one, and I'll go through the other 3 a lot quicker because I know I want to be mindful of our time. So the second mind shift is that our partners or the people in our lives are a perfect reflection of our belief system. So when you have, and I'm not saying you're responsible for the way you've been treated, I'm not saying that it's your fault. What I am saying is that they are great feedback. If your partner is mistreating you in some way, shape, or form, there is, I guarantee you, there is a belief that you have within you that either I don't know how to be in a healthy relationship, or I can't trust men, or, right, or I'm maybe in the ASPE community and therefore I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to you fill in the blank. And so therefore I must either deserve this or I must have, right? Whatever the belief is, we need to find it so that we can change the relationship. And it's not to place blame, shame, or guilt on anything, but to just receive the feedback on where you can improve your mindset, right? Where you can improve your belief system. So I'll keep that one short and brief. Did you want to chime in, Mark?
No. Why don't you go through and then
Okay.
then I
Okay.
will go from there because
And
I want to
then-
make sure that these are all addressed.
that we hit them. Okay, so the third one, and we already talked about this earlier, so I'll keep this brief as well, is that all relationships, let me back that up, all healthy relationships are created on a foundation of self trust. They must be created from trusting yourself. The trust in your external relationships will reflect the trust you have in your internal relationships. So if there is something that, if there's any mistrust going on outside of you, so for example, just really quickly, in my relationship, my husband was hiding an addiction behind my back for 10 years. And I felt foolish. I felt so naive looking back on it, saying, how could I not know? How could I not tell? I was a substance abuse counselor at that moment. I was also graduating with my marriage and family therapy degree. I felt so low in that when I found out about his hiding of his addiction. And what that did was it broke all trust that I had in myself to look for those types of signs and signals and red flags. And what I had to do was rebuild the trust within myself. And it most of society will tell you, like, he needs to earn back your trust. He needs to do something so that he can be trustworthy again. That is completely wrong. What we need to do is find where our trust within ourselves was broken and rebuild the trust, work on the forgiveness of self first. And once I trusted myself, the trust for my husband actually just came naturally. And it really, ultimately, you don't have to trust the world around you. All you have to do is trust yourself to show up in the most authentic, loving, caring, wholesome way in any situation, and you will be able to navigate the highs and lows of life. So I said, well, if my husband ever lied to me again or betrayed me again, I trust that I know I can handle it the next time around. And that was all that mattered. Okay, so that was the third mind shift. And then the fourth mind shift is that everything is a relationship. We already talked about this as well, but I want to like really solidify these four mindset shifts because it's important for us to really embrace in order to have these transformations we want. So everything, the way you relate to your money, the way you relate to time, your job, the people at work, your community, strangers walking down the street, nature you have a relationship with. Everything is a relationship. And if you've learned how to transform one relationship in your life, I know you have the tools and the skills to transform every relationship in your life. You just need to change your perspective and perception that it's different. It's not different. You can do it. So that those are my four that I wanted to share. Oh, Suzanne, yep, you're muted. There you are.
Sorry about that. I can see how the parts of my life have been affected for the positive when I look at it with that lens of really focusing in on it. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. All of a sudden, and Mark can attest to this, all of a sudden, one thing was affecting the positivity of the next, of the positivity. And my career, my vocation took off as soon as I fixed that relationship with my mother. And when I fixed the relationship with my ex-spouse, that we're now friends, then I could focus on my mom. And I just felt like I started checking off every possible relationship, saying, okay, bring it on.
I love that.
Go ahead, Mark. Your take.
Yeah, so that's something I call releasing the anchors, finding the places in you that are holding you in place. But I want to comment on the mind shifts that Samantha shared, and I made a few notes here so that we could get in the time frame and get everything in. Where she was talking about our relationships being a reflection of our inner beliefs, and this is a really powerful thing for me as I was aware of the shift I made. And I made a huge overall life shift in my heart many years ago after I reached my rock bottom experience, is the best way I could explain that. And once I did that, all of a sudden, everything improved. Everything improved. All the income, all of my relationships, my health got better. I was playing in a sport for years where I couldn't seem to get past my upper limit problem. And then as soon as my life changed, I exploded past that. And I started getting all these rewards. And that really helped me understand a little bit of this, what Sam was saying, this inner reflection, right? Outer reflection coming back to us for what's going on inside. And as I just wanted to really strengthen this point you made, it doesn't mean anything's our fault. It doesn't mean that we created something against ourselves on purpose or we were trying to self-sabotage in any way. It's just a relationship of our inner system reflecting outside of us. And this is something that goes on all the time. So the more we can become intimately aware of ourselves, what we think of things, what are our beliefs on different things, and the more we study ourselves, the more we'll start to see places that we're dissatisfied with and say, okay, regardless what anyone else says or thinks, when I look at that, I really don't like this. So what can I do to make this better, to strengthen this, and to change it in some way where I will like this? And the more I made those adjustments, the more all of that outside started to correct itself. And that's something that the great Bob Proctor would say all the time. I love that. The second one you said, all relationships built on trust. There is a level of trust in all of this. And I think combining that with the previous one, am I having trouble trusting because I don't trust me? Is there a reflection going on here? Or what if I was taught mistrust through old behaviors that I experienced when I was younger? And that taught me that, this can happen. So be on guard for it. And now here I am putting energy and focus to the very thing I rather didn't show up. And yet here I am searching for it unintentionally. So I noticed I was doing that in the past, where, like Suzanne said, I don't like this, I'm going to go on to the next one. So what did I do? Go on and find a very similar one, because my belief system hadn't changed. So I'm going from this problem to this problem to this problem, and they're all very much alike. And after a while, you see the pattern, and now you get self-judgmental. Oh, now it's just me. I'm broken. I'm a reject, or whatever inner dialogue which is attacking myself is not true. It's just a lack of awareness that I can make a change on how I see things, and that's going to change my experience out here and what I attracted. And everything is a relationship. And I just covered that because so many things got better in my life, I started to realize the relationship of my perception to the world and how I saw everything, how I saw money, how I saw how I should be, how other people should be. Wow, isn't that interesting? I have a lot of these inner judgments that are coming from someplace. I think this, I think that. Wow, how much does that affect everything I'm attracting to in the lifestyle I've built? Because what I love what you said there, Sam, is it makes so much sense that everything is a relationship to us, because in order for us to relate to anything, it's got to come from a belief of something. So that belief is in me, and that means my interaction with that thing will always be strangled by that belief until I address that and say, why do I believe that? Or the 7 levels of why, just briefly for everyone, asking why up to 7 times, being what I like to joke about, that annoying 4-year-old that's asking all the time, why, yes. And keep doing that to yourself to get to the bottom of why I believe what I believe. And that really helps make a shift, because very often we can see with a little bit of time and effort why something's the way it is in me. And it's such a simple change to make once we become aware of it. Then we can just go, aha, you were hiding. I found you. And now let's try this new behavior on instead and see how that works out. So yeah, that's my input on those. I love those mindset shifts. Those are awesome.
Going one step further, it has opened my eyes. I began to say, when I was finishing up my relationship with my spouse and understanding his insecurities and my insecurities, and then I said, well, why did I attract him? Mm-hmm. What brought me to going into that relationship? And my eyes have been blinded to the fact that that was the way I grew up. So my eyes opened up to saying, it didn't start with him. It didn't start with him. It was the fact that I was accepting behavior in my childhood as okay, as acceptable, Which then, and I remember the day my mom said, well, you two can go off and get married. I'm like, wait a minute, why are you trying to get rid of me?
Yeah.
Why are you trying to marry me off so fast? And I understood, but oh my gosh, 25 years later, she didn't want to spend the time with me. I'm like, oh, wait, the relationship started there. Okay, now I understand. Now my eyes are open. It wasn't about me at all. It was never about me. So can you imagine my confidence built up when my eyes opened to see that we go into the same relationship over and over again if we don't look closely at our part in it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So good. Can I share one more tool with you really quickly before we
Please.
move on? So Mark was talking about awareness and how key that was, and then Suzanne, you backed that up with your awareness and how it started well before your marriage. So one of the tools that I like to share with my clients is the triple A's of transformation, and what that is awareness, alignment, and then action. So once you become awareness is key. So you need to create more opportunities to become aware. And once you're aware, you can align with your highest truth. You can align with love. You can align with trust, right? Connect to your higher source and then take action from that place, that aligned place. And that's how you're going to create results in your life. New results is become aware, align yourself, and take action from there. And I'm guessing, Suzanne, and for all of us, that's how we created change in our relationships. We just kept our awareness open. Then we realigned every time we were triggered or upset or, right, an opportunity arose. And then we took action. We showed up in love. We changed the way that we responded to things. And therefore it began to change. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, what I found so interesting was that I was the one who actually went to my husband and I said, I know you don't love me. I accept that. And therefore, I think that it would be best for us to go in different directions. You know that that was the first day I ever got respect from him because of the fact that I finally came to love me. I came to love me. And that's when I finally spoke up for my needs instead of sitting back and saying, okay, whatever you want, honey.
Yeah. And that's so important to love ourselves first, to trust ourselves first. We cannot have relationships outside of ourselves that reflect more than what we have within ourselves. If you want more love outside, you need to love yourself more. If you want more trust outside of yourself, there's room for more trust inside of ourselves. So it only can reflect to a maximum amount of what's on the inside. So yes.
Right. And that goes right into my next part is when we know this about ourselves, we can really say to ourselves, is this problem really important? What amount of weight am I putting onto this bickering? And how can I change the way I view the little problem? Because sometimes bickering isn't about a big thing. Sometimes it's just about why won't he help me unload the dishwasher? Or why won't he help me put the kids to bed? And so it just comes down to, hey, I would love your help because it's important to both of us to do this together. And that's all it takes is don't be afraid to ask. Say, you know, it would be so much more fun to get the kids back together, right? And then, what is he going to say? No, I refuse? I don't think so. If he really cares about you, he's not going to say that. So these are just things. Speak up for what your needs are. Okay, I get you need 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever it is, when you come home from work to decompress. That's what Mark would say. My Mark would say to me, I need, all right, fine, go watch the news, but I will need your help later. But I never said that to him. And I wish I'd known these tools back then to say, this is important to me if you would help. In the interest of time, I just want to ask one other question. Is there any advice to a woman to say to her husband, hey, look, I want to go to a retreat. I want to go on a vacation. I want to go for a girls' time out. Can that make a relationship stronger, or do you think it breaks it down?
Um, so actually something that I would say the BTI community like solidified, I've known before, but really solidified, and that's where the three of us have met and come from, was how to approach your spouse with something you would love to do. And this just echoes on all the things we talked about throughout this conversation is when you're talking to your spouse and asking them about something you would love, it's less about asking for permission and more about deciding first, trusting yourself with your decision first. So having that internal dialogue and then coming to a decision and then approaching your spouse with the decision. So, right. So, for example, if Mark, you were my spouse, I would say, hey, Mark, I would love to attend this couples retreat and I would love for you to come with me. Would you be willing to do that? Versus, hey, Mark, what do you think about going to this couples retreat with me? That leaves a lot of space for him to be like, well, I don't know. And when you're decisive in your decision and then approaching your spouse with a conversation around your decision and asking for the support versus the permission, that does strengthen the relationship. So, yes,
Oh yeah, you should never be asking permission. You can say, as Samantha was saying, you can go up and say, I would love your support. I know you don't understand, and you may not even agree at this moment, but it's important to me, and if you love me, that is going to be something that is going to be very strong and important to me. And then when you want a golfer's weekend or a fishing weekend, whatever it is, I will support you. It is a compromise. It can go back and forth. But don't go and say to him, why are you going out this weekend? And he can't say to you after, well, I went out for a guy's weekend, but no, you can't go for this. That doesn't, you got to come to a meeting of the minds and say, our relationship will improve if we support each other in what is important to us. There are three gives to amplify love. Patience, which is allowing the time to express ourselves without someone jumping on and trying to fix the problem or solve the problem or give their interpretation. Just listen. Listen to the whole explanation or request, not request, statement of what you'd like to do. The next one is giving compassion, which I know Sam would agree completely on, is giving compassion. I understand you relate. I get it. Can you explain what might have happened that might have detained you? Instead of, I don't understand why you're late again, because you're automatically on the defensive. Just sit there and say, can you tell me what went on behind the story that I don't know? Help me better understand. Or as we say, tell me more. Tell me more. Tell me what happened that I was expecting you at a certain time and you didn't call me and I'm worried. So, compassion. The third is attention. If I want to spend Friday night with you, strolling down by the beach and you're sitting watching TV, what kind of a relationship? But if you two can say, well, Sunday is the game, but Friday night I really like to walk the beach. Compromise. Compromise. You both have important things that you want to do, but it's not all your way, it's not all his way. So, one last thing I'd like to talk about is here's a great idea I had heard, and this was a story from our organization called BTI. Write love notes to each other and just tuck them in special places. Write a special, I love you in that blue dress, and put it in the blue dress. Or, hey, Con, you look really great playing golf, and put it in his golf bag, or whatever. Those little notes can really bring a smile. And sometimes that's all it takes to get each other to really, hey, I'm not in this alone. She notices, or he notices. He sees what's important to me, and it makes me feel good. What do you two think about that? And then we'll wrap it up.
Go ahead, Mark. You go first this time.
Okay, well, you reflected something intriguing because that's something that my wife would do for me on a regular basis for the longest time. She would pick up little love cards and sneak them in my lunchbox when I'd go to work. And then I'd get to work and I'd be, I'd do my thing, and then I'd come across it in the middle of the day. And it was amazing. She said it was a response to something I was doing, where I would send her bouquets of flowers to her desk at work for no reason, just because it's Tuesday.
Oh.
And the whole building would explode with envy. As a matter of fact, the men at her business said that I was kicked out of the man club because I was making them look. So
No,
these
sure,
are the
the
kind
standard.
of,
That's what it is.
yeah, right. And honestly, we were just expressing how we felt towards each other. And I think at the time it was a little unconscious how we were expressing the value of each other. And what I'd really love to comment on to close up, if I can, and then pass this to Samantha, is the self love aspect of this. I don't believe can be overstated, and it should not be overlooked. Self love is the key to all expansion, because each and every one of us, the more we can expand, we will be the change we want to see in the world. And if everybody started to add a little bit more to their own behavior pattern, we would all improve. The whole world would come up. And with that being said, self love is not selfish. Selfish comes from limit and lack. That comes from need, an empty space we try to fill, we try to take. So I would say to everyone, be mindful when you're in a relationship, when you're responding to something that your significant other is doing. How strong is your response ability? Your ability to hold back that reflex of anger, resentment, judgment, and say, whoa, hold on now. How would I feel if that happened in my direction? Like you said, Suzanne, and you said, Samantha, the way you present something is a lot more powerful than maybe what's going on in your head when you're thinking, I'm going to say this, but it didn't come out. It sounded better in my head and it didn't come out as well, right? So I just want to leave that notion of there was a level of self love that both me and my wife had that we were unaware was increasing in ourselves. And that's what created the I'm going to share that more with you. And then it became a back and forth. And we said we had a fairy tale. We just hadn't written it and put it in book form yet.
Yeah, I'm waiting to read that book. I love that, Mark. So just to piggyback on what Suzanne and Mark had said, I would highly encourage all of you or challenge all of you to, yes, write the love notes to one another. However, you start with notes. So find some love all over the places, and one day you're going to stumble upon this love note and you're going to forget you wrote it, and it's going by writing yourself love notes, a spouse or anyone in your life. And then also to piggyback on what Mark said about self, 100% agree on that. And I want to add this: self-trust is actually the highest form of self-love that you can express. So if you want to increase your self-love and you're just not sure how to do it, one of the things and the most potent thing you can work on to create more self-love is to learn how to trust yourself. I'll hand that back over to you, Suzanne.
Oh, Ilis, this was such a great way to kick off our relationships, because you're right. We didn't just look at the spouse or the significant others. We looked at all kinds of relationships. And isn't that cool? I love to tell the story that because I had a hard relationship with my mother, I went home last summer. Each of my girls on a special one-on-one, I said, how can I love and support you more? Which was something I never received from my mom. And I said, you know what? I'm breaking this chain of angst, and I'm going to go home and say to my girls, how can I love and support you more? Both of my girls like, wow, mom, you really already do. I said, well, thank you. But you need to know that if there's anything I can do to make you feel more loved and supported, please feel free to let me know. And I have had that wonderful relationship with my girls because, in spite of, and we learn by design or default. And I said, I'm going to design a relationship with my daughters that I always wanted. And I even brought another daughter in to do it for her too. And I love that because my girls and I, all three of them, and I have a great relationship. So this isn't about just relationships between a man and a woman or woman and woman. This is any relationship that you might come across. Find the love in you first so that you can pour that love out and others will feel it. So I want to thank Samantha and Mark for coming today and kicking off Relationship Month. I think this is going to be great. And I will hope to see you next week. Next week, I have Kathy Biggs coming in, and she's going to talk about how Asperger's in the family can affect different members outside, grandma, grandpa, aunt, and uncle, who may not be with the child or with the individual day in and day out, how they can be empowering, not disempowering. So please come back next week to see how Kathy Biggs is going to tell you about her special relationship with her grandson. And thank you both. We'll talk to you soon. Well, thank you. I want to say thank you to Mark and to Samantha again. Mark for his second viewing, and I'm glad you got to see who he was now. And Kathy Biggs is going to join us either by recording or in person live. And I might even ask my sister-in-law if she might like to join us. But anyway, I want to say thank you for coming. And what I was going to tell you before is if you prefer to read versus watch a video, I have started a blog. And the blog is going to be more of a spiritual side called Enriched Woman. And I will let you know how to find that by putting the information in the comments below. And I'll also be advertising it over the next couple of weeks. It hasn't gone live yet because I'm getting it all into place, but that will be coming up soon. So I hope you'll join me there as well. And I want to say thank you, and I'll see you next week.